to the Madam Facilitator. I'm sorry I gate crashed the first part of your meeting, but it's such an important place to be now that I thought I would, instead of just coming in and making my remarks and going, at least spend some time in connecting with you because of the sensitivity of this subject and the painfulness of this subject. I spent a lot of time in the regions. I was just in Benishangul Gumuz in Metakel last week, and honestly, this workshop meeting cannot have happened sooner. The work around responding to survivors, whether they're the women or the men themselves, whether it's the children, the families and communities, it cannot be emphasized high enough. And so I'm glad that this is taking place, and I want to thank UNFPA together with the colleagues from UNICEF, UN Women, and really thank you very much, Dr. Tades, for being here, because at the end of the day, we are supporting your efforts as the Ministry of Women and Social Affairs to really fast track the action that is required for people on the ground, particularly the women, the girls, the boys, and I hope that you address some of the issues around some of the gender issues related to GBV. But before I start reading through the very nice notes that Tata has put together for me, I want to start off by saying I hope you're able to spend some time with your family, with your loved ones during this long weekend. Welcome to Sika. It's a very special time for many Ethiopians, and also from where I come from in Uganda, Easter is usually the highlight of what our religious ceremonies are. But I hope that means that you're fully charged to move ahead with this 2-day training of trainers on the Pocket Guide, because supporting the survivors is the biggest gap. I think the ministry has already identified it, and everywhere you go, I was with Amina Mohammed, whether it was Kombolcha, whether it's Mekele, whether it's Samara, the issues remain is the support to the survivors. The support to the survivors. I am the chair of the Humanitarian country team, and in our humanitarian response plan, protection and the support of the survivors is the least funded component. This is how serious it is. And so if you're doing a training of trainers, please make this an issue for everybody. Everybody, not just the experts, not everybody who's just got GBV at the front of their title, but that every humanitarian, every person, every employer actually looks at the issues on how they can work that way. So I'm glad that we're here in person. I must admit, Madam MC, speaking through a mask it'll be the next day. I look forward to the days when we don't have to do this, because I'm sweating buckets underneath this mask. But it's at least we're meeting face to face, and this is a big step forward. COVID is still very much with us, and that we look forward to the interagency learning collaboration as we sit here, because at the end of the day, I am responsible for everything that happens here. I am responsible to the government first, and then secondly to the UN Secretary General. The UN Secretary General, for him, this is a primary issue that needs to be concerned. So I'm really happy government is here, but also that you've got members not only from the UN, and I hope civil society colleagues are in the room. I don't know, I missed the introductions, but I think the civil society networks, NGOs, national NGOs, and just to let you know that in the humanitarian community, I'm really pushing for greater engagement with national, non-governmental organizations to be at the forefront of the humanitarian response and to be engaged not only in food distribution, not only in commodities distribution, but on exactly this kind of work around protection. So protection is the centerpiece of our humanitarian work in this country, but also the development agenda and the peace process. The space has to be safe. It's a sensitive issue that will allow or require all of us to unleash and unfold who we are. And I'm sure that the facilitators that we have in the room will lead to that, because when you are communicating the training of trainers to others, they will be able to sense whether you're genuine or not. They will be able to sense whether you're genuine or not. There is very little support for survivors out there. And it is assumed that if they get health care, if they get immediate health care, that everything is all right. But psychosocial support and anything that follows isn't like that. It's sensitive. The empathy that follows has to be from you, from the heart. You have to put yourselves in the feet of the people that you're trying to reach out to. Pre-existing gender inequality makes women and girls particularly vulnerable in crisis situations. But I'd like to say again, and this is following lots of focus group discussions that I have had moving around the country, please do not ignore the boys and do not ignore the men, particularly in the areas where conflict has taken place, because this is how painful the situation has been. But all this vulnerability increases their exposure to multiple forms of GBV, and I hope that you get the full spectrum of what GBV is about. It includes sexual violence, which all of us also has a long list of what sexual violence is and what it isn't, domestic violence, forced marriage, or forced relationships, whatever you want to call it, depending on the context you're in, sexual exploitation and abuse. And within the United Nations, I'm also the chair of the PSEA, not the chair actually, Esperance and UN Women are the chairs of the PSEA network, so that all our humanitarian colleagues have signed on to a code of conduct which makes them commit that SEA is not something that they do. I have had complaints coming in from communities already. And SEA, people assume it's only rape. It isn't. There's a lot more to it about exploiting people and communities out there who are very, very vulnerable and who need our support, but in times of conflict and in times of where they're distressed, whether it's drought or not, they are vulnerable to us as humanitarians, and we exploit. We exploit even through issues of provision of internet, for exchange, for sex, for internet. So there are definitions that I hope that everybody is clear about, because in the UN survey that we did on perceptions, it is not clear that all of us are on board with the definitions. And that to me is a worry. We do not want what happened in DRC within the UN to come out a few years later. I do tell my colleagues that communities never forget. 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line, they will come and report. They will come report, and the accountability lies with all the people and managers who employ the people who are serving the country. So indeed, in accordance with the do no harm principle, we have a joint responsibility to design and to implement programming in a way that minimizes GBV risks and ensures that the most vulnerable have full access to everything that we're providing. So the load on you is quite heavy, because it means you need to be in the feet, the shoes, I don't know what else to say, of the people that we're trying to serve. Any effort that is made to compromise the relationship, that is zero tolerance. This is closely linked to our deeper appreciation of the current realities on the ground. And therefore I ask, and I'm so glad people from the regions are here, and I keep telling my colleagues and others, please get out. Please understand the context in which the communities you're serving are living. Because if you don't do that, then you will never be able to understand the realities and the challenges that they have. And therefore, these challenges require us to work together. And that's why we have this cluster system, where we are, whether you're UNFPA, whether you're an NGO, whether you're an international NGO, it doesn't matter what your label is. Working closely together is the way we need to move forward, because then that way we get the information around what the needs of the communities are in real time. And the real time means that when we hear from the communities, that is when we respond. And we should be able to provide that space for communities to report allegations, for communities to complain, and then we need to respond. respond, they will not come back, and they will not say. The GBV Pocket Guideline is a global tool. I think it's a global tool that was developed by the Interagency Standing Committee in 2018, and it's been adapted for the Ethiopia context by the CP GBV AoR and the PSEA network last year. And since then, the revised version has been endorsed by the Ministry of Women and Social Affairs, and as we heard earlier, is in several languages: English, Amharic, Oromia, Tigrinya, and Somali. I'm all for translating everything that we do. I think this is something that I keep stressing with the UN country team, that documents in English are a waste of time. So thank you very much for the UN system with the ministry for putting it in local language that allows adoption and understanding. But the training that you will then take on needs to be verbal. It will be face-to-face. It will need to be recurrent. It will not be an event. It needs to be something where you stimulate focus group discussions for people to understand what it actually entails. Because the issues that the facilitator mentioned at the beginning about everything lost in language or lost in translation is real. And women, particularly disabled children, disabled parents, do not know and do not think that they have the right to complain and that this is not normal. The GBV Pocket Guide is designed to be a practical resource when a survivor discloses their experience to any worker in the field. Of course, there's a journey that assumes. Many of you in this room, I don't know, and you are the privileged ones, I don't know how many of you would actually come up and offer a complaint if you were violated. So if you think it's difficult enough for you, can you imagine what it's like for those who have even less power than you do? So when a survivor discloses their experience to any humanitarian, any partner, whereby it includes this GBV Pocket Guide is supposed to help you, and so internalizing what it entails, you must believe what is in that pocket guide, because otherwise you will not be able to transmit this to the people that you're training, and it requires that you not only prepare for those contacts, that you do less talking, like I'm doing at the moment, too much talking, and that you listen and link up the people to where support can be provided. This GBV Pocket Guide also integrates considerations for children and adolescents, a very, very difficult population to actually talk with. I don't know how many of you have got other young children or adolescent children. It's difficult enough to talk to adults about this, and that's why we always start with adults, right? And we always think that, we'll deal with adolescents and children later when we've sorted out the adults. But I think that getting the skill set of how to communicate with children, how to communicate with adolescents, must be part of the package that leads to taking this TOT forward. These important issues that I've put forward will be addressed in this meeting. And Jessica, good luck, and your colleagues. I've had good feedback on what happened in Mekelle recently, but I'm sure that the colleagues who are here, I think, is it a holiday or is it not a holiday? It's so quiet in the streets, I thought I got the date wrong. Actually, I thought it was a Sunday, driving around, there was no traffic. But if everybody is here, that means there is dedication, and I think that we can work with this. So I'm wishing you all a very fruitful TOT, and I look forward to following up on the countrywide rollout and distribution. Chacha, you're going to be under pressure, because I hope you've got a roadmap starting from Wednesday. Is it the end of the workshop finishes on Tuesday? And that we need to roll out. I will, together with my sisters here, support all the efforts. They don't only have to be UN, national NGOs, international NGOs, faith-based leaders, name it, regional authorities, any support that you require from the United Nations, we will be there. Thank you so much.